Tom Riley, star of Da Vinci's Demons. What were his demons? This was a complicated man, wasn't he?
Yeah, very much. Particularly the version that we are presenting in his 20s. So he was yet to achieve any of the things that he is known for. His legacy was as yet incomplete, even barely begun. And so we're dealing with a man who was illegitimate, who he was a bastard, so incapable of inheriting wealth, incapable of inheriting land. So as a result, he had a constant chip on his shoulder about trying to find a way to prove to the rest of the world that he was worth as much as he believed he was worth in a society that simply wasn't letting him. So our Leonardo deals with those pressures of not only being tormented by his own genius, but tormented by the fact he can't prove to anyone and no one cares. And not only that, we throw in a whole mix of other stuff to do with his mother, the disappearance of his mother, his father's inability to recognise him as the genius he is, and then, of course, the less figurative demons of the plot.
Now, a lot is not known historically about Da Vinci, so this gives you guys as storytellers a lot of leeway to make it up and have fun with all kinds of theories, right?
Oh, absolutely, and that's very much the drive of the show, is that David Goyer found this period in his life between 27 and 32 where no one quite knew where he was. And apparently there's various accounts that say he was in Syria, some say he was travelling elsewhere. And likewise, there is a whole section of his notebooks that are missing. So he left behind, or in theory, we know at the end of his life, he'd written 13,000 pages of notebooks, but in his journal, but only 6,000 or 7,000 of those pages remain. So the other 6,000 are missing. So what was potentially in those 6,000, when we know that in the ones that we've got, you've got the tank and the machine gun and the submarine and the diving suit, that's a huge goldmine for a writer to dig about it, particularly one who likes the elements of the fantastical as much as David is. So it feels like it's free reign to say, well, what if what was going on is far from what you could ever imagine?
Now, you mentioned the scientific side that he had, of course, which is extraordinary. I was not aware, for example, before watching the show, about how deep he was into to being a war engineer, I guess you could say, building his weapons of mass destructions for the evil Medicis.
Well, I think, where we're up to now in the broadcast, I think certainly America's on to episode 3. I think the rest of the world is 2 or 3. That will begin to take its toll by episode 4. I think what we knew about Leonardo was that he was a humanist and a pacifist, ultimately. He was very creative, he was a vegetarian, he didn't believe his body should be the tomb for any animals, I think were a vague approximation of what he said. So currently in 2 and 3, he's certainly trying to use war engineering as a way to get his creative expression out there. It's his only way he can make money. As I say, he's illegitimate. So it was, in truth, he did become a war engineer for Florence and later for Rome. And he did it in order to achieve ends elsewhere. But that will weigh very heavily on him in the episodes ahead. We'll see how a man who is a humanist gets to that point. Now,
very few paintings survive by this man who's considered one of the greatest artists of all time, possibly the man who created the greatest religious painting, The Last Supper, and arguably the greatest painting, period, with the Mona Lisa. Now, I have a trick question for you, Tom, and that is, the greatest thing about the greatest painting, the Mona Lisa, is that very enigmatic smile. What do you think she's smiling about? What does that smile mean? Your opinion. Just get your opinion. Well, channel Da Vinci for us here.
The thing is, he carried around the Mona Lisa for the very final 20 years of his life. He wouldn't sell it. He kept it with him. He kept repainting it and repainting it. And I'm wondering, maybe the smile is because she's the only person who remembers what he was thinking when he started it. Is that too?
Okay.
Your choose.
I like that. Yeah, because it does suggest some kind of knowledge she's holding back with a wink.
That slightly smug look, it's fascinating. Have you seen it in the flesh in the Louvre?
Yes, many years ago.
Yeah, it's quite amazing.
It is. Now, the surprising thing about your show is how very, very sexy this show is. and really, I mean, everybody's going at it with everybody there, and it makes you wonder, looking back, do you think those years were more sexually open than the era we live in today, or less repressive?
I would say, I wouldn't say less repressive. It was certainly, the repression came in a different way. I think sexual openness now is just, presents itself in a very different way to it did then. Back then, especially for women, it was they had very little way of attaining status aside from using their bodies and using their physicality. And certainly Lucretia in our show has gained everything by being able to use what she has beneath her clothes, and what effect that has on the men in positions of power. So yeah, I think the time there, it was certainly a freer time. It was less constrained by concerns of labelling sexuality. It was less concerned with potential sexual transmitted diseases. It was or, you know, or certainly they weren't understood. So yeah, I would say it was a freer time because the consequences perhaps weren't so keenly realised.
Whenever you do a TV show, a movie, whatever, there's always some kind of fun stuff that happens off screen that we don't see. Do you have any fun stories like that?
Oh man, the only thing that really it started out fun and then gradually lost anything that was amusing about it by the end of the 6-month shoot is that shooting it here in Wales, we don't necessarily have the Florentine Renaissance Italy weather. We've got the rolling hills, we've got the lush green landscape, we've got the flora and the fauna, but the rain here is extraordinary. So we completely burnt through all our weather cover in the first season. Everything that we had to shoot inside was gone. We ended up having to shoot scenes outside in the pouring rain and improvise dialogue about, well, this is unseasonable. This doesn't feel like Italy today, does it? So I think in episode 2 there's a whole scene outside where we're supposed to be having a banquet sat outside in a beautiful, dry, sunny hillside, and instead it looks like we're in the middle of the Great Flood.
Oh wow. That is the whole show has this great graphic novel feel. That's intentional, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, David Goy came very much from the idea that he wanted to make something wildly entertaining, and then as the story progresses, it will get richer and deeper, and you'll become more invested in the characters. Certainly, from midway through the season to the end, it's extraordinary, powerful stuff because that style of storytelling is something that he's very versed in, and he does a beautiful job of it. And actually, that world, our version certainly of the Renaissance, which perhaps isn't as historically accurate intentionally as others that have been put on screen, is like the storyline on steroids. So yeah, that graphic novel description is the perfect way of describing it.
Also, there's a lot of computer-generated sets, right? I mean, what's very impressive about watching this is a view down this street, or across the city, and you could tell that a lot of it is digitally mastered, and that a lot of attention went into it. It's really quite impressive. You really believe as a viewer that this is Renaissance Florence.
Yeah, huge, and it's quite interesting actually because some of the CGI actually I think gets better and better as the season goes on, as we began to sort of find our feet and how we were doing it in the UK. But certainly the amount of attention to detail is extraordinary, and it's interesting. I'd previously only watched it on a laptop. I'd watched versions that had been emailed to me, and I watched it in HD the other week, and it's surprising how it holds up in HD, almost better. Like the CGI has been designed with such attention to detail that it will look it's in its perfect world when it's on an HD screen, which surprised me actually. Just that, I think that showed just the level of attention and detail that had gone into it. People peering in windows right in the distance, putting their washing out. It's extraordinary.
Now you guys just got picked up for your second season. Congratulations!
Thank you, thank you.
Did you do some celebrating, like drunken sword fighting or brawling?
Yeah, well, we all just went out and had sex, just like in the show. It was a surprise. I mean, it did so well in its first outing, and internationally, the numbers have been fantastic. So it felt like a no-brainer to get back here and go again. And we were kind of prepared, should it happen, should we be picked up. So hence me being here now, and Vinci bearded up, and we're all set to go as soon as possible. But it's great, and the place the second season go is fantastic, really great.
So take us through a typical. All right. So when do you suspect you'll start shooting again?
I would say within a week.
Oh,
soon.
that's soon. Okay.
Yeah, we're
And then
really.
how long does it? And then how long does it take to shoot an episode?
We take about. It depends. I mean, it depends on the level of action, because we're trying to shoot each one like a feature, and because it's period, it takes a little longer than your average TV show. So it might be three to 4 weeks per episode, sometimes less, sometimes more. Particularly towards the end of the schedule, it's less, as you panic and run around like headless chickens. But certainly at the beginning, we try to give as much time over to creating the world as best we can in as long a time as we can afford.
And how much improv is done on the set by you actors?
Well, it's tough because it's slightly Renaissance language, and although we are actively trying to be contemporary with it, the way we're talking is on the say-so of David is very modern, and our inflections are very modern. But the language remains period. We're just trying to throw it away a bit more than you might expect. So it's quite tough to improvise those lines, unless, of course, you find yourself in a downpour and you have no choice. So generally, we do stick to the script.
Da Vinci himself was a bit of a cocky rascal, of course. Do you personally, like him?
I do, because I know what's coming. I mean, the real luxury about doing something where you've got 8 episodes and you've read most of them before you start is that, and it's not something that tends to happen in serialized TV, because generally on network television you get the script for the next episode 2 days before, and there's the frustration of, oh, if I'd known I was going to do that, I could have held back. In the first season, we had pretty much every single script before we began, so there was something quite freeing about going, you know what, I can be an unpleasant character in this first episode. I can play him more arrogant, more cocky, because I know he will buy that back in episode 5. People may not get what they want all at once, but we have the time, the journey to explore them. And I think as a result of that, the drip feeding of information about the characters that occurs over the first season is more successful than perhaps it would have been if we'd read the first episode and thought, oh no, I've got to get my crying in and my vulnerability and my happiness and I've got to be funny here and scary here. You know, I think that was a rare luxury on this job.
Okay, well, congratulations on this show. You got probably the greatest job in the world, don't you, if you think about it? You get to portray possibly the most fascinating man of all time, and you get a broad palette where there's enough mystery that you can play with it at the same time. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's surprisingly liberating, and that's certainly not what anyone would have expected. But I think once you get over the first hurdle of, this isn't what I thought it would be, then it really rewards you.
Okay, well, good luck to you. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Nice to talk to you.
Same.